Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to the RPG Daily. I'm Richard Quiner. I'm here with a special guest sitting next to me, kind of. This is Zach. He is the winner, lone entrant to the RPG Writer Workshop giveaway thing that I did a couple weeks ago. And he's been working hard. Zach, welcome to the show. Just real quick, give me an idea. What is it you do normally? And then we'll get into the actual work part of the stream.
Well, normally I am a security officer for a nuclear power plant and a father of multiple kids. I've got seven children. Um, so I'm basically a night owl and do that, but I dive into video games and stuff on the time that I can as well. So.
All right. Well, and you definitely, when we were talking a little bit beforehand, you mentioned you haven't really had a chance to play much. Is that still my understanding?
I have never played an actual D&D game, but I have watched over hundreds of hours of
Okay.
play.
All right. And that was Critical Role, right? Mainly?
Yeah, I watched I think I watched episodes 1 through 90 in a month and a half from work from all the overtime I had.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, 300 something hours.
That's quite a bit. All right. So yeah, welcome to this process. This is going to be a fun adventure for you, I'm sure. Figuring this whole thing out. So we actually I'm going to go to the other screen here that I have set up, so we can see. I got a little screen capture going on. That did not work. There we go. Yeah. So the things start on the 1st. How have you been doing on it? We are on the 6th already, so we're already through 6 different lessons. How do you feel so far?
And now I'm a lot more confident with getting things done because the lessons are phenomenal. They
Mm-hmm.
really explain everything you need to do. I am a little bit behind due to the holiday season, or holiday weekend, I
Yeah.
should say. But so I'm 2 lessons behind, but with those lessons that I'm really into, I've gotten a lot more of an understanding. The accessibility one is definitely my hardest so far, though.
That is the same for me. Like I mentioned, I had taken, this is the 3rd time taking the course. Accessibility was the one I ignored both the first times. And on those 2 times, I didn't even finish writing my adventure. So we'll see. I'm hoping to finish it this time. I do have a published one, but I had made my own challenge back in March. I was like, in March, I'm going to write and publish an adventure. And I ignored the idea of accessibility completely. So I'm with you on that one. It's a confusing topic, but it's an interesting thing. I was just wanted to go over this and show you, and partially for the viewers, but also for you to understand the extra stuff they've thrown in here that they didn't have
Mm-hmm.
before in terms of lessons. So the getting organized, living document, and accessibility, we're all there. Brainstorming is there. Really, I noticed on the outlining and mind mapping. Have you done that one yet?
No, I'm not on that yet. Right
Okay.
now, I'm currently on uh, mood boards and playlists. I'm getting ready to helpful hooks and the synopsis.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
The outlining and mind mapping, they took that to a whole other level of detail on that. So for me, that was really good. And then they added this outline to draft lesson, which I had
Mm-hmm.
never seen before. They've upgraded their lessons in the NPC quest giver area. The incorporating maps is all new. 5 cents guide to creating atmospheres, completely new. World building exercises was there, but it's so you joined at a right time that you are just getting the full load of information here, and they leave a lot, on the table instead of giving us a lot of guesswork. So let's talk about your adventure. You've done
Okay.
mood boards. What do you got? What have you been working on for it?
Well, when I first signed up for the course, I had like a more of an upbeat kind of you're all students and you want to go to some guild and the typical normal this is my first story type of writing.
Yeah.
And the course doesn't share your image and description on their Discord if you'd like to as well. So I just tried to find a random picture, and I found a picture of a bat-faced humanoid figure from The Witcher 3, and now I've turned my entire campaign into a horror story. I think I'm gonna go that route. Um, so I can kind of, because I'm like all set up really goofy here, but if I can get the picture that I chose,
Oh,
if
that
it's in
guy.
there. So
Yeah. Just
sorry for
lower it
the
just a
bad
little
lighting.
bit. Lower it just a hair. Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
That guy. Yikes.
So I used him, and my description, which it does say to use it and have a more open description as you go, but I put a vast dark woods covered in thick brush and thorn covered branches sits a large tree and hollowed out earth. This tree is twisted and withered, broken by the elements and time. A small cave can be seen as its base. In front of this is a bat faced humanoid creature with glowing yellow eyes and slate gray skin, ears pointed back and mouth open, glaring its yellow teeth. You can see its expression watching intensely as if it was guarding the cave entrance. Its arms at its sides, you can see this creature's skin is very tight and wrinkled, torn at the chest, where you can see rotting flesh, muscle, and bones. Shining from its rib cage is a bright yellow glow shining out from the front of it of its torso. So the accessibility is so that way if a screen reader was reading it, it would be able to tell somebody that can't see the picture, if they're colorblind, whatever it may be, can see what it is. But that's what I
Yeah.
don't like about the accessibility part is I don't want to have to write my entire script of what it is in these multiple different sections, and it's just too much when I want to just write the story.
Right. So I think just from my experience that idea of accessibility is perfectly reasonable to miss at first, especially in your situation where you're still kind of learning the mechanics of the game. You're still learning how these things work and how to include that into an adventure. Like if you just ignore accessibility for now, no one's gonna fault you on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if it helps you make your story, if it helps you tell your story, not having to worry about that, I say by all means just skip it. And also you can always go back later. Um, they don't really explain this, but on DM's Guild, the publishing site, you can upload your PDF, and then if you need to go back and fix something, like you find a typo later, you can always go re-upload a new one, and it will push that out to anyone who bought or downloaded your product.
Okay.
And so it doesn't. You're not locked in it once it's uploaded. So if you add accessibility, you can upload that, tag that on your thing if you want to go that route. Um, I'm gonna try to be accessible on this one, but with everything I have going on, I will probably end up ignoring it if I'm being honest. Because
I
I
think that
got
is something I'm gonna push off to the side until I write the whole story and then make it
yeah.
accessible afterwards, like a 2.0 update.
Yeah. So with your adventure, is your plan to do a one shot, or are you hoping to make something a little bigger?
Um, for now, I just want to make this story and hope, in the hopes that it becomes into something.
Okay.
But I'm probably gonna have it be either chosen as a one shot by itself, or you can take it into a campaign that's already ongoing and existing, and you can just add it in here. I'll put a hook or two specifically towards um, tying it into your current campaign. So that way, if somebody does want to see that, and they're going through a thick woods or they're going through some sort of a night type
Mm-hmm.
situation, they can use this
Nice. Have
for
you
their
have you thought of
campaign.
any hooks for your game or for your story yet?
No, well, yes and no, because with the next part, with the brainstorming and ideatizing, it's basically take time to reread a favorite book, rewatch a favorite film, or re-listen to a favorite audio drama, and then basically pick that apart and then turn it. It's not plagiarism, they say, if you
Yeah.
turn it into your own thing. But so my idea was, because my wife and I have been watching, we got really into Underworld and Resident Evil.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take parts of Underworld, parts of Resident Evil, if I use Resident Evil mainly just for their characters.
Mm-hmm.
But my like final boss will be Marcus from Underworld with the
Okay.
bat face, with the
Yeah.
wings, and he's hybrid. And then my quest giver, or somebody that the campaign characters, the PCs can go into, would be like Claire Redfield from
Okay.
Resident Evil. Somebody that's got a leadership role, that has a established group of people that she's working with, and then I could play around with that too and see how that goes.
That's an interesting concept. I think that could go really well. People love horror. Everyone loves horror. I don't like horror that much, but even I like horror. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, I sat down the other day and I watched Alien for no reason. I was like, I just
I've
wanted
done
to
that.
watch it. It's a good movie. Or Resident Evil those are iconic games. The movies less so. But that's really an interesting way to do it. I'm actually patterning mine, and I'm hoping Chris Smith was in the chat. Go away, Chris, because he's playing in the game. So I decided to write the adventure that I'm running my viewers through over the next couple weeks.
Okay.
So hopefully they're not here watching. But I'm patterning the whole concept off of the Magnificent Seven or the Seven Samurai. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. More recently, they did Magnificent Seven with Chris Pratt and those guys. But even older than that, they had done a Magnificent Seven movie back in, I want to say, the 50s or 60s. And before that, they had done the Seven Samurai, which was, I think, even earlier. But the whole idea behind there is there's a village that's threatened by a warlord or something, and then they have to go find the heroes. Okay, I saw Chris Smith. He was in the chat, and now he left, so good. But they have to they have to go find heroes,
Saw that too.
and so then the heroes are put against these kind of unbeatable odds. Is the whole concept where they have to go help this little town defend itself against this warlord and his mob. So I'm putting that in a fantasy setting. I have a town. I have a warlord horde of hobgoblins that is going to come wipe out this town in a couple days. Yeah, it was Akira Kurosawa. Dustin in chat mentioned he's a really good filmmaker from way back. But yeah, so that's kind of my basis. But that's where I struggle with adventure hooks on this, because in my head I put it so very stiff, like very one. It's kind of a one note adventure. There's not a lot of hooks I can think of. So that's what I'm actually struggling with. We're gonna try to go back. Make sure you're not muted. It keeps muting you whenever I change out views. But here on is my OneNote. I set mine up a little differently than yours. I remember you showed me your Trello, are you using that? Is that working out for you?
Yeah, I'm using Trello,
Right.
and I'm using I don't want to use brand name specific stuff, but I'm using my notes from my tablet.
Okay. Hey, that works.
for my living document. For now.
Okay.
But I am going back. I'm not using the Ulysses anymore because I'm not going to pay $50 for something I don't understand. So I'm just going to use Google Docs.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I switched to OneNote just because it keeps it all in one thing and I can access it everywhere too. But I was struggling with hooks because my idea is you get a young man NPC or a young person NPC to show up and offer to hire the players. So then I started thinking of others, and I'm still kind of struggling with this. So I wrote down, I have an idea of kind of putting the players in a competition. So, like, maybe there's a boxing match in the town, and then that catches the eye of somebody. I'm also the villain, of course, the big bad guy who's this hobgoblin warlord, could also be a part of murdering someone in the player's past. That's always a fun hook when it's like, oh, my parents were all killed, and I went adventuring. It's like, well, here's the guy that killed your parents. So that's right now. That's like my biggest struggle is getting those hooks, and then trying to move on to outlining. I figured out outlining. I don't know how mind mapping works yet, but I saw in the lesson they explained it a little more this time, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's kind of my. How often do you have players starting in separate locations and scenes then coming together? That's a good question, Dustin. I'll try to answer that in a short way. It's kind of tough to. I have tried that multiple times in games, and it really takes some players that, when you sit down on the table, they want to be a party and they want to work together. Where in my experience in the past, I've had players who are like, I'm the lone wolf player, and then they say it's the dungeon master's job to make us be and give us a reason to stick together. When you have those kind of players, starting them in separate locations and having them come together in a scene all at once doesn't really work out so well. But Zach, you watched Critical Role. Did you watch the beginning of this second season?
Yep,
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
I think Mercer did an amazing job where he was like, okay, and he like paired them up, right? So he had what was his name? Caleb and Knott were in one place.
Yeah, they were friends. Yeah,
and they were friends. And then you had Mollynock and Asha
Mollymock
were in another.
Mollymock, Yasha.
And they were like kind of acquaintances. And then Ford and I want to say Ford
came
and
into
Bo.
Mollymock and Yasha came into it afterwards because they were part of the circus.
Yeah, that's right.
And Jester and Ford were friends.
Yeah.
And then Bo just kind of, I believe, stormed in. And they all just kind of started talking, and it was all about Jester's drawing and carving skills that kind of brought them all together.
Yeah, it was all about what she could draw really well. But the point of that, Dustin, is Dustin's the guy in the chat who was asking. He's actually an old high school buddy of mine, so I appreciate him coming around. The point of that is those players took that and were like, we're going to work together. Even when they feigned this moment of distrust where they were like, I don't know if we want to work together, they ended up showing up and working together anyways because that's what the players wanted. If they do lone wolf, you can herd them back, but sometimes it's hard, makes them feel like you're just kind of controlling the story. So I started just telling my players, like, you're here to be an adventure party. If you're going to be the lone wolf type, be the lone wolf that wants some help in the moment, or help me come up with a reason why you would be with these people. Don't just expect the DM to tell you that. And for brand new players, I usually tell them avoid the lone wolf thing. Just don't go there, because it's always an interesting character trope that a true lone wolf doesn't really work in D&D unless it's a one-on-one session with the DM and the player. But in a party environment, it doesn't always work out so well. Yeah. So Zach, I told you I was gonna answer any questions you have. So, do you have any questions about this process? Anything you need some more clarification on from the lessons you had been reading?
Like with my plot hooks situation is I'm just too afraid to have the most generic and overused, you meet in a tavern or, stuff like that. So that's what I'm worried about. So like for this story, I'm determining whether or not I want to have it be either already a group of people that have already come together and you're just getting thrown right into it, or if they're going to be, the same thing that you were saying, that there's the big bad guy and he's killed somebody's family, and he also has, his group of minions have stole people from this town or whatever may have you. I haven't figured that 100% out yet, and I might throw that in and kind of do that after I've created the story. So we'll figure out how I'm going to do that as I go. But yeah, my main biggest part was definitely the how to make things accessible.
Okay. Which
and you kind of answered that.
I can't help you with that one. I will say a piece of advice on that question you're having currently about like where do you start the adventure in the players. Abuse those. Yeah, using personal encounters is a good suggestion, Dustin. Personal things. But going on that, what I learned when doing one-shots and these like short-form stories, that the closer you get the players to the final boss battle, almost, the better. So I had in March I was planning a one shot, and I had this whole world built out where I was like, the players are going from town A, and then they have to go into this mining area where they had zombies were running and killing people, and from there they had to hunt down this one specific miner who was going to lead them underground, and then they were going through this dungeon that was like this underground dungeon. And when I play tested it the first time, my players went from the village, and then they just got completely lost in the field with the zombies and stuff, and they never even looked for the miner. So then that I figured out 10 days before my personal deadline to publish. And then I went back and I removed most everything, and I just kind of fast-tracked them straight to, here's your job, is to find this miner who went missing. That was all they had. And then their starting location was actually in the, not in the dungeon, but at the last known location of that miner, which would have been his little camp, where they could talk to his buddy, who was like, oh no, he went missing. And then that was a quick fast track to get them into the dungeon, where the rest of the one-shot took place kind of as a dungeon crawl, which ended up ending the, whatchamacallit. They were able to play through it. So that, I say, for one-shots, like, the closer you get to that moment where they're about to go face something big, the better. Like, I would go almost too far, being like, through that door is the bad guy, and then rein it back a couple steps. Then you give them a little more freedom of choice of how they're going to do things. But that start, you can get, for one-shots specifically, you can get very specific. Like, your job is to find and kill X person. That is your mission. And most players will accept that because it's a one-shot, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do that. And that also works really well for tying it into larger adventures, because the DM can then use that one-shot, and then they can form it how they want to get the players into that location too. So like mine, where they have to go underground in a dungeon, a DM can pick that up, and they're like, okay, this dungeon is now anywhere they want them to be, and they can put them there, and then they can use their own hooks and their own story to get the players into that location. So that's my suggestion on that. Very long-winded suggestion.
So
yeah.
Basically, my other issue with that, with writing this story, is you're not necessarily writing a novel. You're writing bits and pieces for a DM to display how they want to portray it.
Yeah.
So that's my other biggest feat of my own, is I got to make sure that I got to pretend that I'm somebody else, not just myself.
Yeah,
and that'll help a little bit.
That's the biggest challenge in publishing, is getting into that mindset where it's not just I'm writing it for me or I'm writing for someone to read. It's like I'm writing for someone to read and then take that adventure to other players to have them do the adventure. A real quick side note, Humboy in the chat. I'm for the basic writing, I'm using Microsoft OneNote. And Zach, you said you're just using Google?
Yeah, I'm using Google Docs for the moment, but I'm kind of writing them in my notes for my iPad.
Oh yeah, just the note software. But if you're wondering about what we use to format later, I personally use a program called GM Binder, and I'll actually show this to you too, Zach. It's a pretty cool program. Oh, my screen is up. Okay, right here, gmbinder.com. Log in here. Okay. So you see this screen, it's got a lot of stuff, but if I go to my library here, then here I have actually my adventure that I have published, and I can click in, and it gives me a side-by-side view, where on the right-hand side you have the PDF formatted properly, and the left-hand side you have a script, like a code that fills it in. And so there's different codes for every little bit, but GM Binder makes it really easy to figure all that out, and there's a big community around it too, helping people work on that. So I chose GM Binder because it had the most flexibility for me. Other people use like Microsoft Word and other things like that, but this was my choice, which I'm also going to use for this.
Yeah. And now is GM Binder a free software, or is it like a subscription?
It's a free. You can do, if you want to, you can support them on Patreon. They have like a $3 tier, and it gives you a little bit more features, but not a lot. So the free version is more than enough for this. And they don't have any restrictions on publishing. And so, yeah. And I thought, they made it really easy to get everything in here, looking how I wanted it, doing pictures and the layout and the page layouts, everything's really, really, really well done.
It looks really nice.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I like that. Better than other software.
Does it do all those boxes? Does it do all those boxes by itself, or do you have to like drag and drop them in there, or how does that all work?
There's no dragging and dropping, but I'll show you here. If so, like I hover over this word and this little square showed up. That's a fast link. So when I click on that, on the other side, it shows where I'm at in the text. So here, that's the lower corridor. So on the text side, I can change this and type things, and it'll preview it here in a minute. So it just added a whole bunch of text lines in there. The boxes, they have a code. So the armory, for this kind of style box, you had to do 5 hashtags, as the kids call them. And then that creates a box. And so it's that kind of thing. And they do have buttons on the top here, like a snippet wizard here, that you can pick the different things that you want. So you can add in a back cover or a front cover, and it just makes it really easy to lay things out and do it in the code.
Oh, wow.
And it runs right in your browser. So you have Google Chrome. It'll work in there really easily. So I ended up liking that myself.
I put that in my resources notes.
Yeah. When they get into the lesson on publishing and formatting, they do bring up GM Binder, because the RPG Writer Workshop is partnered with them also for this course. Let's see. We talked about that. What was your other question about the one-shots? And I gave you my input on the one-shot, like where to start the adventure. Oh, writing it for a DM to run. And it's where you have to find what works for you as the writer. Because I have some writers that I look up to who I think overwrite, and they share too much information with the DMs. Like one of the first things I bought from DM's Guild, the writer had put like specific words, like things people can say, and I found for my DM style that's a bit much. But some people say it's better to put more than less. But then there are writers who are like best selling on the DM's Guild who write very minimal things. Let's see if I can find one. I'll show you real quick. That I just put a finder in front of your face. This author is her name is Kelsey Dion, and she's like one of the better writers out there right now, in my opinion. If I can find my dang links. Oh, books. It's in my books. The Im's Guild. And then, here we go. Secrets of Skyhorn Lighthouse by the Arcane Library. This is her thing. And you'll see when I get in here, it gets to this page here. It says Scurvy Dogfight. And she has it broken down as a very like analytical mindset way of reading it. This is how she does it. No one else does it like this. Because she like worked really hard to figure out a way. So like I, as a DM, I could pick this book up and run it without even having to prepare for it. Because I could just read a page, run that scenario with the players, and then go on to the next one. But this is like the other side of that spectrum. So you, as the writer, if you want to write more, you can write more. If you want to write less, you can write less. It's entirely up to you. So that's my input on that. Just write as much as you're comfortable with. I think once you decide to playtest, because you mentioned your brother was ready to go, and are you on the Discord for the RPG Writer Workshop?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna get on there soon.
Okay, that is another good place where their people are playtesting and helping out with that too. They said this time there was something like 4,000 entrants into the course.
I saw that in the email.
It's nuts. It's insane how many people are here. With that, do you have any other questions, Zach?
I mean, the ones that I'll have probably as I go down the road, like how to publish. One of the biggest ones was, and then you kind of answered it through messaging back and forth, was depending on if you're going to write for DM's Guild or writing for another publishing company or
Hmm.
source, making sure you have everything, the copyrights and stuff. But I'm assuming that will really be laid out as you go down the line with that.
That one actually, the main stuff for that already was discussed in the course. That is, there's one that says on RPGs and where to publish.
Hmm.
It's in the additional resources, but I can give you the easy side of that. You have DM's Guild, and then you have anywhere else. Those are your two main options. DM's Guild, the rule is if something is published on that platform, you can use the exact names and locations from the officially published D&D content. So you can make like your adventure, you could have that set in Ravenloft, which is the Curse of Strahd, like gothic horror setting. I think you can do it in Ravenloft. I'm gonna have to double check. They have
I think
certain,
that was one of them that it did say.
yeah, they have certain settings where they're like you can use these settings, and you can say this takes place in this location. You can also use any of the monster stat blocks and and magic items, stuff like that. You can use any of that in your adventure. The downside of that, you can only publish on DM's Guild. So if you publish there, you can't to go put it on your own website somewhere else. It has to stay there. You can link people to it, but it has to all go through DM's Guild, which is kind of annoying. That's the kind of gotcha for a lot of people. The good side of that is Wizards of the Coast does look at DM's Guild on occasion, and if they see a setting that's really popular and people like, they may, I haven't heard of it happening, but they may offer to buy it from you. But you as the writer, you still maintain ownership of the locations and things that you create. So in that case, it's an interesting place. A lot of people don't really use it. They just go with the other thing we'll talk about in a moment, because DM's Guild also takes a cut of the proceeds. They take like half of any of the sales. So some people are like, well, I don't want to give them half my sales if I can drive enough traffic to my website to buy my adventures. So there's that side of it. The other option is it's called the open game license and the.
Oh, there goes my side. Not gonna move anymore.
Yeah, there you go. It's the system reference document was the other one. So it's the open game license and the system reference document. And the open game license is basically permission for you to use certain things in your publication if it's not on the DM's Guild. So you can use certain rules. You can't explain how the rules work, but it's basically like here's a set list of things that you can say and use in your publication, and it's for free. And the system reference document lists all that stuff for you. So if you need a monster stat block, if it's in the system reference document, you can use it for free and clear legally. If you don't want to use any of those, the other option is to make your own. Like you can make your own monster stat blocks, your own magic items, those kind of things, your own places. But those do not become, rewind, those become then part of the open game license. So once you publish something under that open game license, somebody else can come along and say, I like that monster stat block you made. I'm going to use that in my publication. And that's free and clear for everybody. There is more of an explanation if you read like the OGL. And I'll send you an email later because I just got an email today from the Arcane Library. She did a blog post explaining the legalese because everyone's going through this writer workshop. So they were asking her about it because she publishes mainly on her own site. So there's some good explanations, and there's another one called Save versus Lawsuit, which is another really good blog post that explains everything. So I'll send you those so you can read up on it. For me this time, I'm again just going to do DM's Guild. It has all the infrastructure. I'm still getting my website up and running. But how do you feel? Which sounds more appealing to you from that?
I think I'm going to do the DM's Guild just for the fact that me not knowing all of the official D&D rules 100%, and yeah, I'm reading up on them, but not being able to know how to create my own stuff right off the bat, I think that's going to be the easiest to be able to kind of pick and choose and pull from certain stuff. Now, you were saying about using different places and different locations, so you can't create your own locations using
You
DM
can.
Guild stuff.
You can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah. They're
Okay,
just,
so
they
then
give you
that makes
permission to use those. The one thing you can't do is you can't publish a world or a campaign setting on DM's Guild. Like me, I talked about on my channel, I'm working on this world called Yindir, and it's my own kind of creation. I can't write a book on that and publish that on DM's Guild. I would have to publish that separately and use the open game license for that publishing. But if I create a town, like my Donar Son, the Dead of Donar Son is a location that I created, but that fits anywhere in any of the D&D worlds where anyone feels like putting it. I was able to publish that no problem. Yeah, so
Okay.
that doesn't limit you too much, especially for one-shots, things like that. You're going to be perfectly fine with whatever location you come up with. Yeah. All right, I think that just about covers it for this one. Give me 1 second here. Make sure you're not muted. I just changed the stream angle again. So the upcoming course lessons are where it's going to start getting intense, because you have the outlining and mind mapping going from outline to a draft, and then on the 9th it starts the NPC quest giver and some of the more specifics. So like this week is all about getting ready and coming up with your idea, and the next week is about coming up with the details, right? You got to come up with your NPCs, you got to come up with your locations, your big bads. And these lessons are some really good ones, so make sure you go through those. And we'll do another stream. I'm going to try to do another stream this week. I'm thinking probably Friday, but we'll coordinate and see if a day works for you. And then next week we'll do some more also. Like, we'll just do, 1 or 2 a week, talking about it and seeing where we're at. But it sounds like you got your feet under you. I think
a little bit more than I did when I first started.
Yeah, it moves fast. Especially, it was kind of weird with the 4th of July weekend and everything happening, but you hit the ground running. And then for that 17th to the 22nd week, that's probably going to be the most just sit down and write kind of work you're ever going to do, because you're not only playtesting, you're also rewriting and writing and coming up with the actual descriptive paragraphs and stuff like that, which is fun. It's not that fun, but it's worth it. Yeah. I think in the end, when you sit down on the 31st and you hit publish and you got it up there, then you feel that relief. You're like, oh, I did it. I've accomplished something. I've created something really good. Yeah. So, yeah. Any other questions before we sign off?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, any of the viewers here, I have not been able to keep eye on the chat too much. But thank you guys for watching. Keep an eye out in the next week or so. We got a session 0 coming up with a game with some viewers. I got a really excited squad coming in to play the same adventure that I'm writing for this. And yeah, that kind of thing. So thanks for watching.